Whakalawhilahiatu and good evening. Here is our news bulletin for tonight. Firstly, is it free for all, or can the PAC's recommendations rein in on the unregulated use of government properties? This was one of the recommendations by the Public Accounts Committee as the chair of PAC MP Maureen Melekitama presented the committee's findings to the Whanau Kipule.
The Whanau Kipule held its second and third reading of the annual appropriation bill in yesterday's Assembly meeting. Supplementing the proceedings is a report back from the Public Accounts Committee. The PAC is a select committee of the Whanau Kipule, and their task during these past couple of weeks was to engage with heads of departments to assess their work plans against their allocated budget. The PAC was also expected to provide the recommendations to the Whanau Kipule. In her speech to the Whanau, the chairperson of PAC, Mutalo Member of Parliament Mrs. Maureen Melekitama, outlined the key outcomes of the assessment, which included a request to government to implement effective revenue collection, to regulate and monitor the use of government vehicles and resources, and to address the ongoing vacant job positions. They also requested that the government provide a budget report for the Whanau Kipule once every quarter. In response, the Prime Minister Honourable Dalton Tanglangi welcomed the PAC's report and noted that there was no recommendation to alter any of the budget's proposed allocations. The Prime Minister reinforced the need to look into the improper use of government property, including adherence of employees to internal regulations. This, however, may contrast his sentiment that government property belongs to the people, which might encourage the free-for-all mentality. The government of the day, however, after a barrage of questions, received the blessing of the Whanau Kipule as the annual appropriation bill passes for the 2026-2027 financial year.
Before the arrival of the most recent boat last week, the island was out of or running very low on some basic food items such as milk, butter and snack foods. BCN News spoke with local shipping agent Mr. Falani Mokoia, who says the low levels of stock on the island is not due to shipping issues, as the shipping schedule and importer patterns of ordering stock have not changed.
Mr. Mokoia says consumer behaviour may have changed where there is perhaps more demand for certain items, or that importers could miss their deadlines to have stock loaded onto the shipping containers. He says shipping delays would occur for factors such as bad weather conditions and berthing issues in other ports. Customers would perhaps now expect our importers to order more of the essential items that have run out quickly in this past month.
Has the youth lost interest in waka fishing, and just who is responsible for making sure there is active recruitment of new waka fishermen? BCN News spoke with Brendan Basisi, who is the president of the Niue Island Fishing Association and now CEO, to find out if there is a real concern that this tradition may be on a declining trend, similar to the Wangahau Niue.
The last hike in interest was about 10 or so years ago, where several village groups undertook waka building projects for many of our keen youth. These days, waka fishing is left to those who understand the importance of regular practice of waka fishing.
From my own personal observation, as well as my observation while working in fisheries, as well as over the years, and in the marine space, and as the president for the Niue Island Fishing Association, I've just watched the numbers slowly decline over the last 30 odd years, and I think there's a number of factors that has led to this. I think one of them is that we're a lot better off now in terms of not so much food security from a food security index sort of perspective, but availability of food, income up levels and stuff like that. So there's less demand at a family level to access resources through canoe fishing. I think there's also the sort of the era that we've reached where the kids are now, the younger generation, are exposed to electronic gadgets and phones and little tablets and iPads and things like that, so they're distracted by that. And I think also because the resources available are, out in the ocean and not so easy to catch. So fishing was always considered quite dangerous and quite hard, and so I think there's been a general shift in different families that you see, as well as the declining population. The sort of 15 to 20 years, I've seen a number of really good village projects that have built, quite a number of canoes together with the young people, but then more than half of them have just sat down at the sea track, been launched and used once or twice, and then rotted away. So yeah, there just isn't that, there isn't the passion for it, the interest, but also the necessity. In the old days, it used to be a necessity. It was one way of bringing home fish and protein for the family.
As the Niuean saying goes, koe whahani muto mahani, which means each generation to their own preferences and influences. But how does one reconcile this outlook with the structures or entities in place that exist for the very purpose of preserving culture and tradition?
I think there's a responsibility for taonga niue. I think there's a responsibility for the government through those different mechanisms, taonga, fisheries, I think, the Now Trust has a responsibility to look into some of these things, and make a contribution towards doing that. Even the community has a whole has a responsibility, to look at how they can improve this, the livelihoods of their community, village community. Maintaining what are considered part of not just individual family taonga, but it's also part of the village community taonga, I guess.
Brendan roughly outlines a process including the inherent challenges of introducing young people to the marine environment.
Maybe similar to some respects as the scuba diving training, that the program that we've partnered with Niue Blue, and the Now Trust is providing the resources to enable that to happen. So, we've also worked with Daughters of the Deep, so they're learning how to swim, and then from there we select kids that are confident and are interested, and then they go on to do their PADI scuba diving discovery course first, and from there, then if they remain interested and are confident in the water, they get an opportunity to go on to become certified scuba divers, in the hope that those kids will get opportunities in the tourism space, either working for a dive company or taking out little reef tours themselves in future, but also contributing back maybe to some research programs, stuff like that, so that they can maintain their certification. But yeah, this similar thing I think could be applied to the canoe fishing, is that but it can be done in smaller groups by a dedicated set of people who know not only how to build canoes and fish out of them, but they know also how to pass that knowledge on in an interesting and exciting way to the kids, so that they're not getting told off all the time, or you've got to have the right people to do it, and just encourage them to stay with it and make it exciting. It's and it takes time. You can't expect just to hop in a canoe and learn how to launch and retrieve it quickly, and then go out on your first day and catch big fish or lots of fish.
The Resource Management Advisory Committee, or RMAC, of Mutalo is currently implementing a waka building project with funding from the Niue Ocean-wide Towhia Niue Trust. This will be the first waka building project in several years. Speaking to BCN News, Aki Sekifilu, who is a member of Mutalo's RMAC, says the project is done in conjunction with Niue Ocean-wide, and the project is driven by a mindset that you cannot protect the ocean if you lose your connection to it, and that people will naturally protect marine resources as it holds so much value to them. When asked if he was concerned that waka fishing was declining, he says that it does worry him, but it also lights a fire within them to act. He says that when a village loses its waka fishermen, a piece of their Alito Tangata Niue goes quiet, and in Mutalau, they refuse to let that flame go out. Looking ahead, the AMEC team will undertake other teachings, such as reading the weather, feeling the tides, and other traditional methods of fishing. Aki says knowing when to fish is just as important as knowing when to let the ocean rest.
Niue gains another important document of traditional knowledge in the launch of the book called Lotomatala Niue on Saturday last week. The book recounts the life experiences and traditional knowledge of 11 of our elders who have resided on the island throughout their lives.
Written in both Wangahau Niue and English, the project was led by Dr. Jess Pasisi, with assisting from Tuli Makaola, Inangaru Wakafi and Ioane Aleke Whamai in interviewing and transcribing information from the elders. PCN spoke with Mrs. Bonnie Pihingia, who is one of the authors of the book.
I felt so good and I felt so proud that our stories is being published, and it's a good thing for people to see and know what's our point of view based on the stories that we written in the book, and it's been published now.
Mrs. Pihingia welcomes a more meaningful use of the book and how or why elders on the island should participate in sharing and documenting their knowledge.
It's a good resource for the high school level, because the book is it's most written in advanced Niuean language, and it is good because the book has been written in a way that, being in the vernacular on one side and in the English on the other side, and the kids can identify on the meaning of the word when they read a Niue word, and they can easily saw the meaning on the other side, because it's one side in the vernacular in Niuean and one side in English. So it's a good resource for them high school kids. It's a bit too advanced for the primary level.
Dr. Jess Pasisi says the book will be a source of connection for many Niueans, such as herself, who were born and raised abroad.
There's something about the Niue Library that always captured my interest, and being able to think about how we can add to that. And so having 11 elders and their stories come through, all special in their own ways, and with everything from Niue place names to Niue history to experiences of government and experiences of kai Niue, all the things that they find happiness and joy in. Each of them have something for me to learn as a kind of young person on this journey, thinking about how to connect with Taonga Niue as well as Wangahau Niue. But also being able to uphold that in a really kind of tangible and significant way.
The idea of the book being used in school curriculums, both here in Niue and abroad, would be a true testament of how education values Niue traditional knowledge from Niue's elders.
It's a bilingual resource. And it has a range of stories, and I think that's really important in Niue literature and in Niue scholarship, as well as in Niue texts in general, is to think about how we can see all of the ways that Niue knowledge exists, whether it is through university institutions, through government institutions, or things that we learn in the bush or learn from our families. So I definitely encourage younger generations to pick up this book, as well as older generations to have conversations and to start conversations around what they find important and share that knowledge.
While the Open Women's Tri-Series Netball Tournament concluded on the 20th of June, the winners were announced only last Saturday, 27th of June, during the Walking Netball Tournament. This has become a tradition to celebrate the end of the Tri-Series tournament.
The Tri-Series tournament was a 3-day tournament of round-robin games between 8 teams. The first day of the tournament was held on the 23rd of May, followed by the second day of the King's birthday. The first day of the tournament was held on the 23rd of May, followed by the second day on the King's birthday. The overall winner was the Tamamaituapa Royals, followed by Classics Rebels in second place, and in third went to the Tama'ava Momas. Although ecstatic with the overall win this season, coach Kruzi Pihingia Barbosa for Tamamaituapa Royals says the Walking Netball, which celebrates autism awareness, should have more teams participating to show the island's support for this great cause. The celebratory Walking Netball was won by Alofi Magic, followed by a Niue High School team in second place, and third place went to the Tamamaituapa Royals. Osana Suneholo for PCN News.
The Niue High School has been running lunchtime field events for its athletics program since the start of Week 8 2 weeks ago. This has been done in the lead-up to the main athletics day, which will take place next Friday, 10th of July.
PCN News received a statement from the Niue High School principal, Mr. Charles Ioane, who says the program has started off very well and he is looking forward to an enjoyable and fun event for the students and staff. He says as at the end of last week, the team's current standings are Pua in the lead with 7 golds, 3 silvers and 2 bronzes, followed by Kiato with 5 golds, 3 silvers and 8 bronzes. Angakali and Waia occupy 3rd and 4th placings respectively.
And that is our news bulletin for tonight. Georgia George Viliana, good evening.